Okay, so let's get started. David Lough, your president, regularly scheduled meeting. Are we okay on starting the Zoom?
We're zooming.
We're Zooming. Okay. First order of business to declare a quorum. I think we have all of us except Peter Fanning, so we clearly have a quorum. Thanks everybody for being here and in person. Next order of business is the minutes. These were circulated a little late, folks. That's on me. Were there any comments or corrections? To be honest with you, I can't attest that the attendees are 100%, but I think we're in good shape. So were there any edits or comments? If not, we have a motion to accept those.
Moved.
Second. Patrick.
Patrick.
And Peter.
Peter, second. Peter Black.
Okay. And then as far as treasurer's report, Clark, I think we're getting dribs and drabs. What's our situation with our?
Well, it's picking up. We've got today's balance is 11,143.91.
$11,143.91 in our checking account.
Good, and I think we've made a little progress on some of the encore that we dropped out as members, maybe going back. I've had an inquiry from the View who are interested in re-engaging. So it's a little painful at times chasing these buildings, but I think we're making some progress. Next on the agenda is Marlon, and he's not here. May I take a little of prerogative here of the president as a new business item? And one item I don't know how to handle is a suggestion that we consider forming another committee. And this committee,
oh yeah, was that good? Cute. Yeah.
would be, and
Especially ones that aren't.
Alex, this you called what? The Legislative Affairs
You don't
Committee.
really need to tune in. And
Interested
but
in
yeah, I know.
making this an agenda topic in the future or at the annual meeting, and
Okay.
a summary of this.
Okay, let's see. Oh, and what's this
With
one?
the,
What's it called?
changes in condo law,
Cyber satire.
escalating prices, movements in Tallahassee.
Douglas is canceled.
The question of, do we have, is it a good idea?
Douglas is canceled.
Something within our charter and bylaws. And
So that could be sort of
kind of
like,
run this. So I want to float this out there as an idea for consideration that we would potentially add more value to our members and exactly defining the scope of that work. So help me, what would be, is there a process for adding a new committee that's been used in the past that would be wise to follow? Is it something that should be brought up at our annual members meeting, or a floating the idea? Thoughts?
According to our bylaws, the president forms committees. Doesn't require consent of the board or not, but tradition is a consent of the board. The structure, the process in the past has been annually, we would reaffirm a set of committees. And we look at the charters and the goals of each committee for the year. that. There is examples of those going back several years, but probably maybe 2 or 3 years ago was the last one, but 5 or 6 committees, each had a mission statement and then had that, although Peter Fanning was heavily involved in that work too, but others have worked on that. So that exists in our.
Okay, so here's a what if. What if I worked on our existing committees and then ask for consideration of this new committee for further discussion? And I think Alex has volunteered to initially do some work on it. Where it goes exactly, I don't know. But when he brought it up, I thought it was a interesting idea, given this change of state of the world, so to speak, in Tallahassee, et cetera.
Can we define the need for this?
The need? Well,
Are we missing out on?
Well, I think we'll outline the need. The need is Florida has the most complicated condo laws in the world, or certainly in the country. And I don't know how many. I did not circulate the document. Yeah, so I will circulate this document for additional comment. And again, I'm taking this opportunity to talk about it now. To some extent, something I wanted to talk about and stalling until Marlon gets it.
I wonder.
Let's come, well, the master plan I want to come back to. Let me move down to the city manager search. I got an update there. As I understand it, there are 51 applicants. About 5 or 6 are from Florida. No city staff have applied, so as to speak. And per the city commission meeting the other night, the search firm has been charged presenting, whatever the right word is, 10 candidates on paper by March 18th. Each of the city commissioners have nominated a surrogate, or I don't know what it would be called, a person of the community to participate firsthand in the interview process. So each commissioner has anointed, delegated, or whatever it is, somebody to do face-to-face. That's about what I know. There was a fair bit of discussion about this at the city commission. Nobody on the DSCA board is participating in the interview.
No city commissioner.
Well, the city
Selected one of the board members to be one of their.
they selected individuals from amongst city residents, right? None of those were DSCA board members. Yeah. No.
I have a fine point.
Okay, just.
Just since you're
No,
still
no.
Mark, according to Liz Alpert, our mayor, she said that she has nominated, appointed Marlon.
Okay, all right.
Her rep.
Okay, yep. All right, I don't want to go any further on that. Another point, the Joint City County Commission meeting is on March 28th. I haven't seen the agenda on that, but that is interesting timing on this, given everything going on. And I don't believe TIF and the SPAC are on that agenda, but of course, the bodies are getting together. And the first time in like 5 years, I think. So talking is a good thing.
David, can I suggest you go ahead with the downtown master plan discussion? Jamie and I talked about it. We do not think it would be appropriate for either one of us to say anything, because it would really be awkward and may violate the sunshine. So if you do it,
Okay.
we can sit here and listen.
Okay. the first meeting of the downtown master plan committee was last night. How many watched that?
Was there a link to that, or
Pardon?
was there a link sent around? or-
Well, it was publicly,
Or just one of the regular
On
city
TV.
commission notices?
yeah. Okay. So where to start? I actually, following the meeting, wrote a personal communication to Doug Jeffcoat about, and I circulated it, I think, to the board member. The concern, I guess, is, and let me just cut to the chase. The invitation to negotiate, and this stuff I know very, very little about, triggers, I guess, some sunshine restrictions or requirements that were enumerated in incredible detail by a procurement consultant to the city. And are problematic as far as there are 13 members on this commission. And by the way, they went around the room and introduced themselves. And I am crazy impressed. There are some really impressive diversity career-wise and life experience-wise people. So I think it would be, I'm going to use the word criminal, if the brain power and horsepower on that committee was not used for the betterment of the development of the plan.
David, it's the smartest group of people I've seen, having been involved for over 30 years with the state.
All right.
Smartest.
So at the crux, I would encourage, it's an hour and a half if you want to watch it. At the crux of the issue is this mechanism they want to use to negotiate that creates apparently some sunshine issues that are very problematic. There's another mechanism, a request for proposal, which again, I know a bit about this, but enough to be dangerous, that might be an alternative approach that would allow potentially more dialogue and more involvement. And so I think the chair was elected. It is Howard Davis, and Bill Waddell is the vice chair of the committee. So I think some of the same thoughts I'm expressing about concern about this process were voiced and now publicly out there. And the next meeting of this group will be March 26th, at which time I'm personally hopeful that some of this will get kind of sorted out. Trying to think what else, but it's the group was seated and is now functioning.
Was there any discussion of why they chose the invitation to negotiate versus an RFP?
I think amongst the reasons I sense or was said was time, that this is quicker, and that they wanted to get some stuff done within a month. But I think the prevailing comments on the committee were, look, everybody's kind of in favor of moving this ahead pretty rapidly, but not at the expense of engagement and transparency and engagement. So this isn't a criticism of city staff. It's a criticism potentially of what process is used and what process fits the objective of transparency and bottom up or top down, whatever you want to call it, with the committee. I sent around this, remember Victor Dover used to comment, planning, proceed at the speed of trust. Well, that's maybe, I'm not saying not trustful, but proceed in a judicious way that gets as much community buy-in to this as we can. So I'm hopeful, and I think Marlon has some points of view on this that he expressed last night at the meeting. And when he gets here, maybe he can talk a little about them. So are there any questions? I mean, it's quick summary.
They summarize what the role of this 13-member ad hoc committee is
Well, I think-
regarding the process. And
I don't think yesterday, I think it had been done previously. And by the way, a facilitator has been chosen, and I'm forgetting the woman's name. She's from Tampa area. Okay. And so they do have a facilitator designated and do have a chair and vice chair.
the committee make the decision as to which process to use. I can't versus RFP.
I was given the impression that the staff seemed to be leading the way on the process they recommended. Now, whether the commission signs on to that and the committee signs on to that to the extent they're able remains to be seen. I think it's pretty clear, body language wise and otherwise, that there were some folks that were not pleased by this selection. And I personally have my own concerns, okay? So stay tuned, and that's the update. At least they're seated and, you know, the ball's in play. So Jamie and Ken are on it. And when I communicate with them about this, I use their city email addresses. So, other things, he said tap dancing.
I'm going with the agenda. He's going with the agenda.
Okay, Ken, on the performing arts and Van Wezel, what do you have?
I think many of you have already heard that Howard Millman died. Howard has been a massive leader in this community for a number of arts organizations, mainly theater, the Oslo Rap, West Coast Black Theater, the Sarasota. Oh, I mentioned that Howard Millman had died February 14th, and he's had a massive influence on theater in this town and creating strong organizations. He saved the Oslo Rep from bankruptcy. He reorganized the West Coast Black Theater Troupe and made it successful, made it work, and helped them create a new theater entirely because they were working out of the Arts Center building at one point, selling 25 tickets to a show. And he also helped the Sarasota Jewish Theater, which has a full season now at, I think it's Riverview. I'm not sure. Anyway, with the Carol Kleinberg. So we're going to miss Howard. He was a nice man and not a bombast. He wasn't showy or obnoxious about his skills and talent. He just was damn good and worked hard at it. Many of you, I hope, saw David's op-ed in the February 21st edition of the Sarasota Herald Tribune. It was excellent. It expressed support for a new performing arts center. And I loved how even-handed and well thought out the piece was. It was really well done. Thank you, David. The Purple Ribbon Committee met on February 24th. They had an update of the Heron Engineering study. I said to David earlier before the meeting, I think this thing is going to go, at least the engineering study is going to go down in flames because they are not using criteria and data from current climate experiences to make their decisions and recommendations in this engineering report. They're using old climate data, and things have changed, and it's absolutely absurd that they're talking about it costing only $1 million to flood-proof the building when it cost $17 million to repair it after this last series of storms. And the condition of the building is questionable. They had to shut down a performance of Come From Away recently because the sound system failed.
There's a lot wrong with that building. Not just the flooding issue from the exterior, but the building itself is in bad shape. And one of the questions that was raised was about hydrostatic pressure. We already know that there's an enormous hydrostatic pressure under the building. A plumber drilled a hole in the floor in one of the dressing rooms to repair some plumbing, and they had a geyser. And they didn't hit a pipe, they hit ground. And they had to patch it up. It was very interesting at the Bob Bunting and Marty Hilton both made negative comments about the criteria that the engineering firm was using to talk about flooding issues and risks and fixes. So that's really problematic. Selby Gardens has the George Harrison exhibit ongoing right now. The attendance is absolutely incredible. They're
Ken,
having lines form. But
were you proposing a motion for a support letter on the?
oh yes, I'll get to that.
Oh,
I'll get to that. Yeah. But Selby Gardens is experiencing huge attendance increases with the George Harrison exhibit. You know, George Harrison's widow was here, Olivia, and it's getting incredible international publicity. So let's see if I've got done with the. There's been a report in the newspaper recently that the Sarasota Orchestra's new performing arts hall is going to cost $425 million. Florida Studio Theater is again announcing the creation of the McGillicuddy Arts Plaza. It will cost $57 million, 8 stories, 24 apartments, 33 hotel rooms, and about 133 parking spaces, and 3 new theaters. And the Florida state government has proposed transferring the Ringling Art Museum control from USF to New College, and that's controversial. That's to a college that has absolutely no experience managing an art museum. That doesn't make any sense. Everybody, oh, he's here. Well, then let's
come back to that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Good break.
Well, welcome, Marlon. And I think there is no introduction needed, but we're really pleased to have Marlon with us today. He and I talked and back and forth on a couple things, and excited to have him here in his new role. And the goal here is simple. What common interests do the Chamber and DSCA share with our community? So take it away.
Oh, thank you. Well, again, you know, again, I'm no stranger to the Downtown Sarasota Condominium Association. Obviously, I'm in a much different role than I was previously when I probably last did a presentation. I think the last presentation I ever did to you all was on Zoom, you know, sitting somewhere at 1565 First Street in downtown Sarasota. So, you know, I obviously, you know, retired from the city of Sarasota. I kind of sort of gave myself about 3 months to kind of 1 month to kind of divest myself from city government, 1 month to kind of take it easy, relax, and then another month to more or less start looking for another, you know, position somewhere else where I could, you know, continue using my experience in public policy to, you know, to help an organization. And so, you know, very fortunately, the timing was right, and the chamber had a position that that was open. And so, you know, I had a conversation with the chamber leadership, and the rest is, as we would say, is history. This role that I'm now in terms of the Director of Government Affairs, is a position the chamber had a number of years ago. It was one of the positions that they had where, you know, if you know an individual by the name of Del Bergsoff, he was a previous city manager, I believe from somewhere out in California. He held that position previously, and much recently, they had an individual who actually was in that role as well. So what I'm going to do this afternoon is kind of share with you sort of what the chamber does, and what my role is, and then I'll open up to other, questions that you all may have. Make sure I'm forwarding this to forward. You can drive for me.
Yeah, I'm trying.
All right. If you can go back to the first one, everyone is familiar with this individual. This is the Heather Caston, who is the president and CEO. Heather has been there for about 6 years with the chamber. She was previously with the chamber before she went over to Lakewood Ranch, and then she was brought back as the president and CEO. Heather's doing an awesome job, and I'm not saying that because she is my boss, but really and truly, when you look at as you'll see in one of the slides, when you look at the achievements of the chamber, you'll see how nationally recognized this chamber is. And so Heather is our current president and CEO. Next slide. Joe Hembry, with Hembry Associates, is the current chairman of the board. And so, Joe is really an individual who many of you may know in the real estate business. And so the chair of the board changes annually. And so Joe is the current chair. The vice chair is Matt Broadway from ICARD Merrill, and he'll be the hope if the board approves, he'll be the next chair. This is the staff of the chamber. It's what we call a very small but very mighty staff. And one of the things that I would say is that the chamber does a lot of events. And one of the things that I quickly learned, from being in this new role is that it's all hands on deck type of organization. It's a staff of 15 members. And so when we put on an event like, let's say, the Small Business Awards or the annual brunch and party in the Bay, this is a staff that basically does it all. From in terms of, putting, flyers on the table, doing registration, making sure that, people get seated where they are. This is a staff that do it. And I will tell you one of the things that Heather was concerned about is, okay, Marlon Brown, you were the city manager of a 800 plus organization, a city of a population of, just, about 56,000. Could you see yourself filling somebody's water glass? And I said to, Heather, I said, nothing is beyond me. I said, I knew where I came from humble beginnings. And because I was the city manager, it is not beyond me to go back and fill somebody's water glass.
What are you doing?
So, or give out flyers or open the door and give people direction. If anyone knows me and knows my role, even as city manager with my staff, when we had events, whether it's in 112, whether it's in the chamber, I would be the first to say to, Alexia and Christina, what do you need me to do? Do you need me to go, get the cooler? Do you need to get the ice? So title means nothing to me. And the way that I was brought up keeps me honest in terms of, helping out those who need help. And so this staff, we call it a strong and mighty staff, and it's always all hands on deck for anything. Who we are, and we go to the next slide quickly. This is an organization that has a mission that cultivates our prosperity and quality of life through our business members. We're the voice. We are the voice of the business, the businesses, and we try to create opportunities and solutions, for our community. Again, engaging our businesses with whatever needs that they may have. Again, we were established in 1921. We have a board of about 40 members. We have about 1,400, and actually, when you look at the numbers to date, with that 136, we now have about 1,500 members that are members of the chamber. That represents over 60,000 employees, 60,000 employees, a greater number. And obviously not all of the businesses are in the city of Sarasota limits. We have a number of organizations that also are from Manatee County that are part of our chamber because their employees or their spread or their business also infiltrates Sarasota County and beyond. And so they find it a very a good benefit to be part of our chamber and to be represented by the chamber. So these 60,000 employees, and I think this number is probably understated. Again, when you take a look at the type of businesses that are members, I think it's a little bit more than that, but this is the number that we have right now. We're actually getting ready to do a membership survey that also does a population count of how many employees are actually in some of these businesses, because the impact of the number of employees and what, again, in my role as a government affairs, the policies that government make impact these individuals. And so when you have a number of employees that are impacted at this number, my role and Chamber's role is really to send a strong message to government about the policies that they make and how it could impact our businesses. And so I want to kind of share some of the, again, the events that are upcoming and who we touch. We have a young professionals group that, we again try to engage, a lot of young professionals that sometimes they don't necessarily go to events that may be in Sarasota proper. So we try to create and cultivate these young individuals and try to have them networking with each other, so that, if there are similarities in terms of the things that they do, they can contact one another for assistance and help. Hustle Bars is basically a set of skills that we try to share with our members. Some people, again, you may be wanting to get into like marketing, but you're not too sure about marketing, or you're not too sure about selling goods or services. And so this is a way to kind of give them the skills needed to be able to do those types of transactions. Power Lunch, again, it's just a quick way to get our members together so they can discuss and network together. YPG at the ballpark, again, getting our young professionals together. Women at Work, we want to make sure that our members who have women, especially women in leadership roles or aspiring to be in leadership roles, be able to recognize those individuals and have them networking together so that they have so if they have commonalities, they can share those with each other. We have things like our classic golf and our Sarasota Business Awards, again, recognizing businesses for the work that they do in our community and making sure that they're recognized for that work that they do. And so these are some of the dates. And again, David, you can share this slide with others, and you can go on our website and see some of the events that we have. Again, some of our major signature events. Again, I don't know how many of you attended our kickoff brunch, our New Year's kickoff brunch. That is when a certain individual who was the previous city manager was first announced and first introduced to the membership. And so that happens in January of every year, where we have a kickoff brunch party in the Bay. That was last week. I can tell you that after that event, I was so sore in terms of just helping a lot of these businesses set up their vendor booths, helping them to break down dirty, sweaty, but it was fun. It was really fun. It felt like I was contributing to what was happening, and really having a really good time in terms of the work that I was doing to help some of these vendors. And again, it was a very good network as well. Women at Work, as I mentioned to that's again another chamber event to really engage women with each other and to recognize the women for the work that they do. Classic Golf, Grand Expo. Again, the Grand Expo is getting our vendors. We usually have this at Lough Arena. We bring a lot of vendors in, And so people, and this is open to the community, they can come and see what these businesses offer to the community. And that way, the connection that, let's say if I want my roof repaired, or I want my gutters repaired, or I want my driveway paved, this is an opportunity for them to be able to, to market themselves to the community. Our business awards, I mentioned about that, sporting plays, our annual meeting, and then Sarasota Chamber Martinis, and so that's a more holiday event for our members. And a lot of these are open to members and non-members. There are different registration fees if you're a non-member, but a lot of these events are open to the general public. Accolades. Again, recently, the big recognition for our chamber was the Florida Chamber of the Year. Very prestigious award. When I just recently came back from Tallahassee on our legislative, what's called our legislative flying or legislative days. The Florida Chamber and even other chambers from other cities were there, and we were able to basically be recognized for being the Chamber of the Year, and that's kudos and that's a testament to the work of what our local chamber does. Right here in Sarasota, our chamber being nationally and state recognition for Chamber of the Year. Again, in previous years, we got a platinum award for best local chamber. We were finalists for National Chamber of the Year. And then, our communication, making sure that our website has, pertinent information for our members and even for the public. Again, that, tells you a lot about our small little communication scheme in terms of, the work that they do. The next one, you've seen this before. This is, from the city of Sarasota. Again, when, whether it's the county or the city or the region is recognized, that's a testament to everything that not only you all do, but what our businesses do, what our residents do, in terms of the quality of life that we have here. And so when you get all these recognitions, it tells you a lot about the community that that we live in. And I would be the first to be on top of a mountaintop singing kudos for the kind of community that we have. And you too should be doing that. I know a lot of people see this and they sort of kind of wince, because once you get this national recognition, guess what? People start coming. People start wanting to live here. People they want to open a business here. So what? So what? Communities are going to grow. Population is going to, the population is going to continue to increase. I mean, we're not 1776 anymore. We're now, 2025. And so you can't come, whether you open a business here or whether you come to live here, and lock the door behind you and say, you know what, no one else should come in here. It's going to continue to grow, but it's how we grow. And, hopefully we do it in a manner that everyone appreciates. Again, one of the, I talk about networking, but one of, networking is really connecting individuals with each other, connecting, and providing opportunities to do that. Yes, we may do it over food and drink, but at the end of the day, people make connections and people have, sort of an individual who they can associate with, that they can call on to solve issues or to, just, get advice. Promote, again, we always want to promote our businesses. We want to make sure that our businesses are front and center in terms of what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. And we want to really push that and make sure people are aware, as to, who our businesses are and what they do for our community. And so we do ribbon cuttings and we basically splash it all over our website. When we give grants or awards to some of these businesses, we splash it all over, our website. Or even if we get, some type of award from, some businesses for, for some type of charity work or for helping our sort of workforce development, we want to make sure that, those businesses are recognized for what they And so we get a lot of support. We got a lot of support. You know, we have a lot of, you know, major organizations in Sarasota, in the greater Sarasota area. And so we do get, you know, we do get support from these organizations, whether it's the Orioles, whether it's from the city of Sarasota, Sarasota County, even the state of Florida. The Coalition of Business Associations, that's an organization made up of all the business associations in Sarasota. So things like the Gulf Coast Builders Exchange, the Florida Restaurant and Lodging Association, those types of organizations, just the heads of those organizations meet to talk about, you know, policy and government issues that may impact, you know, their members. You know, we support the Bay Career Edge Collaborative. That's making sure that workforce development and, you know, the types of skills that this community need, you know, making sure that, you know, we have the talent and that they're getting the education and the training they need to support those types of businesses. All right, some key programs. Again, I mentioned Career Edge, and again, the sites will be shared. This is, you know, sort of the program that Career Edge provides. Again, you know, making sure that things like HVAC, automotive, manufacturing, healthcare, you know, areas that struggle to find individuals skillful to provide these services. You know, when kids are growing up, everybody wants to be a doctor, a lawyer, and when we actually do a survey as to what type of wages these types of jobs are now seeing, it's almost six figures. It's almost six figures. And so we say like in an average of, you know, over 3 years, somebody who enters one of these programs, they could be making six figures, you know, after 3 years. And so we try to create opportunities and align individuals who may not necessarily want to follow that path of getting a 4-year degree or a 6-year or postgraduate degree, to give them opportunities to be able to learn some of these trades. Leadership Sarasota, again, making sure that individuals, you know, young individuals such as myself, I'm kidding, I'm not that young, you know, hopefully, you know, try to get them together, trying to make sure that they have sort of a network that, you know, again, when they do move up in an organization, they can call upon each other, kind of share, you know, thoughts, ideas, and advice, solutions, so on and so forth. So we have a program called Leadership Sarasota that individuals register for, and they go through an intense number of weeks of just kind of learning more about Sarasota County and what Sarasota County, you know, does, what it has to offer. And then they graduate from this program. And then we have an alumni part of this where we get them on a regular basis back together so they don't lose track of each other and they continue to network with each other. We do provide internships and small business grants. We have a program called Opportunities for All. And again, this is engaging our minorities in these businesses to be able to also advance, whether these programs offer internships for minorities or younger adults. The Opportunities for All make sure that everyone has the ability to get into some type of skill or some type of area that they would like to follow. Again, Young Professionals Group. Again, making sure that young professionals know what Sarasota and Greater Sarasota area has to offer, making sure that they have a network that they can, again, network with each other and consult with each other. All right, don't know who this guy is, but my title is Director of Government Affairs, and I'm going to share with you some of my responsibilities on this. All right, so my major responsibilities, and again, when people ask me, how was your first, couple months with the chamber, I said it's not like drinking from the fire hydrant, it's like drinking from the bay. The amount of things that, Heather, and again, I don't know how they were doing this, and Heather basically said they would just kind of, flying by the night, in some of these things, like when somebody could, could attend a city commission meeting, or when somebody can attend a county commission meeting, they would send someone. And so just in terms of just my being there, and again, the great thing about Zoom is I don't have to be there in person. I can sit at my desk and do something else. But I, attend all city commission meetings, just listening, making sure that any discussion or policy discussion impacting our businesses that I'm aware of, so that, we can be ready to respond or to react to that type of discussion. County commission meetings as well. I mentioned the Coalition of Business Associations. We have a council called Government Issues Council, again, talking about major issues, and you'll see some of those on the next slide that are very current. And I have to make sure that I'm, aware as to what's happening, why it's happening, who's happening to, and what the impact is to our community and to our small businesses. A State of Community, that's a quarterly event. The last one that we had were the interim city manager and the county administrator talking about, what's happening in their respective governments. And so the next one we're having with the FDOT and the MPO. And again, this happened, you can go on our website, it's at the Carlisle Inn, right there on Via Vista. And again, it's open to the public. Again, whether you're a member or a non-member, you pay a different price for that. Coffee with the commissioner. The previous commissioner that we had, so we tried to alternate this between city and county. Commissioner Tom Knight was our last invitee that came in January. And so Commissioner Kathy Kelly Ulrich, just recently elected, is our next invitee, and she's coming this Friday to Coffee with the Commissioner. And then following that, Commissioner Jenny Ann Koch will be our June invitee, and she's already accepted. And then following that is newly elected Commissioner Teresa Mass from the county. Federal legislative priorities, state legislative priorities, again, those are my responsibilities. And I will tell you something which is really, I wouldn't say surprising, but really, really good for our community. When I started this position and I was asked to develop the priorities for the chamber, and I started looking at, some of the things that the chamber, that the chamber was working on, things like affordable housing, water quality, workforce development, economic development. I said to Heather, let me reach out to my counterparts in both the city and the county and see what their priorities are, because again, this is legislative season. And not surprisingly, but what is really good for our community, the priorities of the city and the priorities of the county also align with the priorities of the chamber. And what a voice that would be to our legislators, that whether we go up there individually as a chamber or individually as a county or the city, they're hearing the same priorities. We're all singing from the same songbook in terms of, the priorities for our region. That resonates strongly with our legislators, and that is what, they like to hear in terms of, okay, they all seem to have the same priorities. We'll see if we can fund this. It's up to the governor to veto it or not, but they strongly like that unified voice of what our priorities are. All right, so I talked about some of the things that I'm working on currently that are on my table of affordable housing. I mean, one of the things that I caution this community about in terms of affordable housing, we react to crises. And we always, throw up, our flag saying, okay, we need to solve this problem now, because it's a problem. And then when things start to, get okay, we sort of lose a little bit of interest. And then the next crisis comes back, we're back, why did we do something, 10 years ago? Why did we do something? So I see that a lot with affordable housing. I came here in 2009, just after, the big, issue with housing and houses being built, by the thousands, and then half of them sitting empty, and people paying astronomical prices, and this was in 2006, 2007. Then in 2020 with COVID, all of the states that were shut down and Florida was open, everybody was moving here. They were outbidding, even locals for housing. And then those individuals who sold their house went into the rental market, and they were then outpricing the people that were renting, and the people who were renting started moving. So it was a crisis. Everybody was talking about affordable housing. We're losing all of these individuals who were living here, working here, and now they're commuting, 40 and 30 miles away. And so we need to do something. And now the housing market is cooling again. I hope we don't lose focus on the need for affordable housing, and that we keep it, as a top priority, because we never know when the next crisis will happen. And so affordable housing is one of our major priorities. The downtown master plan, I know we'll probably talk a little bit about that a little bit later, but again, it is very, very important to our small businesses and to the chamber that out of this effort comes a really good product that this entire community, not only our residents, not only our businesses, but our visitors as well, can be proud of. And I know a number of, or one of you, sit on the downtown master plan too, so y'all gotta be quiet. Y'all can't say anything. Sunshine, yeah, sunshine. I can say what I want now. I'm not a political official. But downtown, this downtown master plan is critical. If I have to, stress it to this community, we've got to get it right. And as I said last night, slow is fast. This is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so if I have to stress anything to this entire community, it's be engaged, get engaged, and be always engaged, because this is our future. We don't want to look back 10 years from now, 20 years from now and say, who did this? Andres Duani. He didn't do this. Look at these buildings. Oh, they're all the same height. They're all the same color. Get involved. Let your voices be heard. Okay? And I think if we do this right, I know there'll be detractors. I know there'll be individuals who will never be pleased as to no matter what government does. But at least the majority of our individuals that live, work, and play here will be proud of this downtown master plan. Jail expansion, huge discussion about jail expansion that's going on right now, and you all have got to be engaged. The county is talking about a $700 million bond for this jail. That is your taxpayer dollars having to pay for this jail expansion. $700 million, they say, oh, okay, it's like $94 a year on your taxes. But you're paying property taxes, you're paying all sorts of fees on your property taxes. Some of you are paying city and county fees. Be engaged, listen to what's happening. Don't let numbers fool you in terms of saying, okay, it's only this amount, it's only this amount. Cumulatively, look at your entire bill, look at the impact of this. The jail expansion right now is slated for downtown. There's a lot of innuendos as to what this is. They talk about its judicial complex expansion. So, it could be masked in different terminologies. At the end of the day, it could lead to more jail beds. Now, the interesting thing, there's a lot of debate as to whether there should be jail expansion downtown or the entire jail should be placed somewhere else. It's a county commission decision. They are by statute responsible for jails. They just contract with the sheriff to run the jail. The sheriff could at any moment say, you know what, I've had enough and give it back to the county. The county is responsible for the jail. If you have any takeaway from today, the county is responsible for the jail. They're the ones that are going to have to issue the bond. They're the ones that are going to have to carry the message about jail expansion. And so discussions, some of you who may have been here back in 2002, 2004, even I heard back in the 80s, there's always been a discussion of jail relocation from the downtown. Prime property downtown, better for economic development, high property value, should the jail be out in the boonies somewhere? It's a hot potato that no county commission wants to take up because people come out of the woodwork and say, not in my backyard, not in my backyard. Even though it could be 20 miles away from the nearest house, not in my backyard. So it'll be an interesting discussion when this heats up. But right now, the price tag, $700 million.
What is your view on that?
On the jail?
Yeah,
The chamber hasn't taken a position,
okay.
at this time because it's still early and the debate is going on. Now, I will tell you, the city, if you look between the judicial complex and the Sarasota Police Department, there's an open pad that was set aside for judicial expansion in terms of more courts and more administrative offices for the courts. And so it was never meant for a jail. And so when I was a city manager, I fought tooth and nail that, because this conversation never dies. Tooth and nail that land would never be used for jail, for beds. And so they've backed off. Again, I'm not the city manager anymore, but if they're talking about judicial expansion in terms of courts and offices, that pad is available. But anything else, it'll be up to community to discuss. Jurisdiction is possible. County's talking about getting someone back to the city. Water knows no boundaries. Okay? Water, I know. Water knows no boundaries. And for years, we've had, again, I live in the city, we have had flooding in the city. And when we've spoken to the county about mitigation or facilities to help with the flooding, they said, city, we assess stormwater fees to everyone, but we don't assess fees for capital improvements. What will have to happen is that entire basin will have to be assessed. So if there's flooding, let's say in Hudson Bayou, someone who lives way out on the east side of the city, because they're part of that basin, will have to pay to mitigate the flooding in Hudson Bayou, even though they don't see any flooding. And so the county used to say, city, you can go out and you can message that. We are not, we'll collect the money. We'll do the project, but you're the ones who will have to go and tell somebody who lives out in the east part of the city that they'll have to pay for mitigation where there's flooding. And
Isn't
so
it the county commissioner's decisions to allow the development outside the city that causes things like the different creeks and stuff to back up? I know that's very much what we agree.
Correct. But remember, our infrastructure is so old, and the cost to replace that infrastructure is going to be, astronomical. And that's why the county is saying, you know what, city, here you go. You can raise the fees to get the mitigation. Because again, when it starts off in the county, it's not, the county has its own problems, as you probably saw from the last storms. But the amount of water that's coming from the county into whether it's Philippi Creek, Hudson Bayou, the Bayou, when it comes from the county, it's not coming, it's not coming in mass, So when it gets here, with all of the runoff, all of the impervious, it creates issues. And then you have sea level rise and climate change and all those things that are causing the water not to drain the way it used to drain in the past.
We're starting to get into a time issue.
Okay.
This is really good. We want to leave, sometime.
So quickly, city manager selection process. I was recently told that I would be part of the city manager selection process to help choose my successor. Well, we'll see how that goes. Downtown master plan update, that's twice, and then city commission priorities. I'm, keeping my, my finger on the pulse of that. They had one meeting recently on that. Some major items that I'll be working on. Crossing a Siesta Key, that's a new name for the old Siesta Key Mall. Working on, Benderson is working on sort of the renovation of that entire site. SCAT relocation study, there's always been discussions of moving the SCAT station from where it is in downtown. Again, prime downtown property that could be used for major, for some major economic use. Sarasota Square Mall renovation that has started. But that's out in the county. Childcare tax credit, that's a tax credit that was recently passed in the legislature last year, but there's some issues regarding how it's being applied and how it's being used. So we'll be working a little bit on that to give employees the ability to use some tax credits for daycare, so on and so forth. And then we have something called a benchmarking trip. That is something that we do every year. We just started it back last year where we visit a similar type city or a city that is doing really great things that we want to learn, not necessarily come back and apply, but just want to learn how they do certain things. And so we make one trip locally, somewhere regionally in the state of Florida, and then we do a national trip. And we normally invite public officials, elected officials, either the mayor or the board chair to attend. We don't ask 2 or more commissioners from the same body to attend because of sunshine. And let me see what's else. And so again, we're here to help, and we're like the government, but different type of government. And so I thank you for having me. Thank you.
Couple questions.
Sure.
Let me kick it off, and I suggested some, but the Performing Arts Center.
Mhm.
You mentioned in your remarks that the city and the county goals, priorities align. The Performing Arts Center is a matter coming on the 17th for the implementation agreement. We're at, gun to our head on what to do strategically and tactically, and the importance to businesses and the economy. What is the chamber's position now, or potentially going to be before the 17th?
So, very good question. So we have not taken that up as a board. The board has not, really, had a discussion or discourse on that. So I can't really, speak for the chamber right now on that issue. And then one of the things to David, is that it is so early in the process in terms of, I think the next step is schematic design. The chamber has already said, look, yes, we support a new performing arts center, but they have not really taken a position to say, okay, let's get our members behind this. They've had presentations from the foundation, they've had presentations from the city, but haven't taken a formal position as yet.
Others, questions? I threw around some suggestions earlier. There's a number of things, but
I have a question.
other board members?
Hey, Marlon, the city manager, assuming that the candidates have all the technical skills and they've managed a city of similar scope, they're qualified, they're educated. What are the cultural attributes or leadership attributes that you think are going to be critical to be successful?
Very, very, very good question. One of the things that, other than the technical or their experience is, number one, ensuring that, and again, this is not necessarily, this is a skill that inherently they should have. The ability to be creative thinkers, to be critical thinkers, to not see, for example, this cup is a plastic cup and you can see through it. How much water could that really, hold? What if, there's ice in there, would it form frost around the glass? If you put hot water there, would it melt so looking beyond what is black and white before you are looking critically as to, okay, the impact of a decision that's going to be made, I think is it's a skill that, that person should have. Not being a micromanager in terms of, the type of, when you hire someone, you hire that person for the expertise that they have, when they're talking about your staff. And so, you don't necessarily have to be a micromanager, but you have to know enough about that subject area that you can make, critical decisions and help that individual, with their decision making. And I also tell my staff, and I tell, even city managers who ask me to mentor them, never fear being fired or doing the right thing. I have never gone into a city commission meeting on any Monday fearing that I'll be fired for doing the right thing or saying, or speaking, about an issue. And I get criticized for that because people used to call me like, oh, he's acting like the sixth commissioner or king or whatever the case might be. No, leadership is more than being a sixth commissioner. Leadership is being more than trying to be a policymaker. Leadership is, being able to share with those who are making policy decisions what the impact of that policy decision would be. And so some people would think that, because, I'm advising a commissioner as to what the impact would be, that I'm, telling that commissioner how to vote. I've never told a commissioner how to vote on this. Never.
Any more comments, Roger?
Well, yeah, Marlon, before you left the city, you were proposing some affordable housing downtown. And I'm just curious, do you know what has happened with that?
I have no idea.
I'm sorry.
I haven't, apologized, but, I know that they were still trying to negotiate with the foundations on an agreement for the actual purchase of the land. The land is already purchased, but to get reimbursed for that. And so I know they were working on those documents, but other than that.
I've got one on transportation, Marlon, mobility.
Yes.
County and city alignments. Downtown is getting dense as heck. I think calculations, the quay, when it's built out, is going to be 70 units an acre. I mean, you go out to Lakewood Ranch and it's 2.5 an acre or something like that. The county's responsible for transportation. We got a disconnect, I think, between, or an opportunity, shall we say, of more downtown, greater downtown transportation and mobility needs to mitigate some traffic things and whatever. What is the chamber thinking about? I think one of your slides was talking about transportation. Can you talk more about that?
Again, one of the things that we don't want are people commuting 50, 40 miles away. And so it's critical, as you saw, SCAT or Breeze on there. And then we're having what we call a state of community with the MPO and FDOT. It's critical that, and again, we're not talking about widening roads. We're not talking about, building new roads, but, trying to ensure that other modes of transportation are being considered. Again, the city took a huge gambit with the downtown trolley and has proven very successful, despite, individuals saying it would never work, no one would ride it, so on and so forth. And so I know the county tried or trying a trolley from, directly from the airport. And, I know it's not working, but part of it is frequency, part of it is reliability, part of it is knowing that, hey, every 15 minutes, if I stand here, a bus or some type of transportation will come. We have the VO scooters, we have, we have, other, we extended like the Legacy Trail, we did the complete street with Ringling. So from the city perspective, city seems to be doing everything to make sure that individuals have alternatives other than getting into their car and drive. I will tell you one thing though, condominium or even apartment developers will tell you that when they survey their individuals who are coming to live there, they want 2 parking spaces. That people are not getting away from that. And so it's a mindset that, I hope that we can change as people get more reliant on, Uber and Lyft and those types of things and ride sharing. Hopefully that will help, reduce the need for riding roads.
What do you think, going on that same train? Obviously, for the affordable housing thing, those people are more likely to use public transportation and so forth, and to get rid of those requirements as far as for parking.
Very good question.
That was something Fender did in his project that stalled.
Very good.
They were trying to get rid of that so they could build it and focus it just on the facility. That way they're close enough to downtown, they can work
Very good
downtown,
question.
whatever.
So the project Roger asked about across from City Hall, it was 1 space per unit, and the rest was going to be public parking. But you're in the heart of downtown. You're going to be enjoying all the benefits of downtown. Yes, it's downtown. You probably have nurses and law enforcement officers and bank tellers living there. They may have a tendency to use a car, but if we have a good, robust transportation system, they don't need to get in the car. And you're right across from the Sky transit station. No problem. Thank you so much for having me. Let's have something really to do.
Okay, all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Okay. We had left off in at the $64 question on the SPAC. And where the situation, if you want to just kind of very quickly recap and then
Sure.
your, Ken is chair of the Arts and Cultural Committee. Yes.
Well, as Marlon and David mentioned already, the city commission will be taking up approval of the implementation agreement with SPAC at the March 17th meeting. The SPAC has contacted many groups and people in the community and asked for support. And so David and I have drafted a letter that would go to the commissioners, each of the commissioners, asking for their support of the implementation agreement so that we can move the project of a new performing arts hall forward. And there were several points that we make in this letter that each of you has received a copy of. Am I getting blank stares?
It was in the, it was
You
in
got
the-
it? Okay, all right. So hopefully you've had a chance to read it, think about it. And the first paragraph talks about our appreciation for the continued efforts of the City Commission in assuring Sarasota's identity as a premier arts and cultural center of the state of Florida. That's important. It's taken 100 years to get to this point, to become the cultural center of Florida. And we're at risk of losing that because of what the state and the county are doing in terms of withdrawing support for arts and cultural organizations. The state has dropped it entirely and the county has really cut back on it. And the arts and cultural groups and businesses in town are in fact the third largest industry we have. So they're generating jobs, they're generating income for businesses in the community, and they're generating taxes for the city and the county. And the city of Sarasota is the major contributor, aside from Siesta Key, to the bed tax. So we're asking that they review carefully this implementation agreement, and if they need to make any modifications, of course, to make them. But we would like to see that the city take up a leadership role in assuring that we continue to be an arts and cultural center in the state of Florida. So what we'd like to do is ask the board to agree to allow us to send this letter to the commissioners before the March 17th meeting. So they'll have it in their packets. So does anybody have any questions about what they've read?
One, we got the principle of sending a letter. Now we can wordsmith it ever so slightly. But in my opinion, the principle of DSCA taking a position on this, I think if you're on social media or whatever, we see other points of view. The question is it appropriate that we, on behalf of our 32, 35 members, take a position on this? You will have seen, I have personally taken a position, so you know where I stand.
And appropriately, you did not mention
Right.
DSCA.
I did not. Okay, so discussion. Yeah.
So Matt Walsh wrote an editorial. It's his newspaper. He's entitled to do that. You know, comparing this back to colonizing Mars and other nonsense. And I wrote a letter to him correcting him on some aspects of that editorial. And he said, oh, well, do you want to write a letter to the editor to that effect? And so I did. I don't know if it's going to be published, but I'm just And it just says Sarasota, Florida, my name in Sarasota, Florida. I mean, I'm on the board of the Chamber Orchestra of Sarasota. I don't use my titles, in that regard. So I have a different view. I think if the orchestra gets built, we're talking about 2,500 seats at the orchestra, 5 miles down the road. We're talking 3,000 seats at the SPAC, in addition to 1,700 existing seats at the Van Wezel. So even if the Van Wezel is wiped off the face of the planet, which I'm not sure that will happen, that's a tripling in the number of the seats. And I also think that the Sarasota Orchestra's campus will take not only their season, but all ensemble groups, chamber orchestras, visiting orchestras, anything that wants acoustic music, unamplified music. And so I have a feeling it's going to lead for the combination of the SPAC and the Van Wezel variety shows, comedians, decades-old Broadway shows. I mean, I won't call it, but it's not high culture. I think the high culture is going to go with the Sarasota Orchestra. It's very unfortunate that we have two competing auditorium plans, but that's what we have now. And they're both raising about the same amount of money, one privately, one half city, half private. So anyway, I'm just putting that out there. I do have one further comment. I wouldn't take out this comment on stewardship. I think Commissioner Kathy Kelly-Ulrich mentioned that, and I think it might come off as against her. I mean, that was her primary thing was stewardship, and I don't know. I mean, she's obviously against the SPAC. I'd be careful with using her words when we're taking a contrary position, because I think we're going to need her in other battles that we have. Anyway.
Other discussion?
To be able to grant a wish. Like that is an amazing.
Part of my discussion was the wording of the letter. I'm in favor of us advocating the arts, the programs we've done. This letter specifically says, we urge you to approve
She was putting
I personally
garlic
read
powder,
that.
onion
I'm
powder.
not sure what version is out there. I read that there was a prior application agreement submitted in November. The commission said, come back with a better agreement that includes a business plan and other financial updates. So is that, you submitted back to the city, is that what we're urging them to approve without reading it? I'd like to know what it is to approve. Maybe a more appropriate way would simply be asking them to give, strong consideration to benefits, understanding the business impact. That's what I saw as some of the questions were raised. You mentioned one of the questions is not against it. Maybe it's simply raising the question that there's cost here. And these costs will ultimately be borne by us taxpayers. And
Well, we all understand that. If you have some wording that you can suggest, we can modify
well, I would
that.
say we're not urging them to approve the implementation agreement. We don't know what's in the agreement. So that would be a sign of wording around giving it consideration.
Discussion, one principle.
And then we're just gonna brush it with olive oil, put salt and pepper and season.
We have not seen.
I would have seasoned the bottom.
I have some olive oil.
Another week.
Oh, you do roll it around.
We're in
In fact, I was gonna put it in the bowl.
situation
I
of
should. Should put it in the bowl first, mashed it out.
conceptual support, and Ken help me.
Well, essentially what it does is it allows the back to move from the
They
concept
could just push
phase
it up in there.
of the project to a design phase of the project. It allows them to move it forward. The public talks about the design, which we don't have, yet. They talk about the cost, which we don't have yet, but we will have it if we can move into the implementation phase.
If a kid's life is made better, is actually a political statement.
There's not
Pay
a,
them more money to do more work.
it's not a procurement process.
Well, I thought that, there were like five stages to this, and ostensibly we were told there are 5 stages, and we could shut it down at each one of these points.
Commission could shut it down.
Right, but then that's not really true, because Mayor Albert said, well, no, you can't just, we have new commissioners, just turn off the discussion or bring up other issues, because we have to maintain a good faith engagement with the foundation. So we are kind of on the hook, and if we implement this, which we don't know what it is, I'm sure it's going to be a lot more money. I mean, they're gonna work on something, and
But it allows them to determine that, to move the process further along so the design has more substance and you can make a better.
well, when Marlon, kind of a disaster of a meeting, but when Marlon presented the Sarasota Foundation Board or whatever it was, in which it became clear that 2 of the commissioners on the board were out, he was asking for $40 million. So, and they said, no way are we going to spend that $40 million. We don't know what the.
Was that the TIF board?
Yeah, it was the TIF board,
Well,
and
that
they.
was the architects.
Right, well, that's what's going to happen next, is the architects are going to put more pencil to paper.
Well,
I think
and
we're going
who
to.
paid for what's going on right now? The SPAC paid for that. They agreed to take responsibility.
Right, and the
They
city
paid
is
for
to
what's
reimburse
done.
them. The city will, I believe, is obligated to reimburse them for that.
Not
And
that I know of, I've never heard that.
no, they're not taking 100% of that. No, and, well, whatever, they were gonna spend another $30 million. Well, okay.
Well, if you don't want to do it, you don't have to do it. But
We're running out of folks. I mean,
But I noticed something last night, beyond the effectiveness of the paddles. I was watching what was going on in response to Elise's talk.
there are people in Roger, what,
There were conservatives that were praising her, and they said this is a really good response to an hour and 100 minutes each.
People are not going to go and drive to
Okay.
downtown, they go across the street out in the suburbs. It's nice the orchestra is building out there, because they're afraid of the flooding, although the ground looks pretty low. This is really critical for the future of the arts and the reputation of Sarasota, and I think this organization needs to go all in and support.
No, there's no doubt we need to support or show our support for it. I think the problem being right now is that, again, the simplification aspect of it is that that's assuming we're going to develop what they've already presented to a certain extent. And I don't think that I don't think there's a lot of support, especially from the county, but I think it was a very grandiose thing. It was scaled down to 2 buildings from 4 buildings to 2 buildings. Frankly, I'm a personal believing, I think we just need 1 building. And again, from living in our building here, we like to see it south of the canal. But on top of that, if you have the venues that we have, and let's say there's 3 venues. You have the Van Wezel, you have the Performing Arts Center, and you've got the new orchestra. That's a lot for this community. I mean, we're 1 million people, more or less, in the overall general community. And those are things that we can do. And I think if we could compromise, because I think the biggest bugaboo here, we can send this letter to the county.
I wish those were a little bigger. You need probably 3 of those.
People that need to get this and know that what's going on is the county commissioners, because they're the ones that are going to have the purse strings and reel this thing back in, because they don't want to spend a nickel.
Thank you, and perhaps David, you recall too, the last CCNA meeting, there were presenters on both the Van Wezel and Performing Arts Hall. And what was said at that meeting that I found particularly interesting is that different theaters require entirely different disciplines. It's a different sort of space for musical performances than for theater performances. And so consequently, the idea that, well, why don't we just use the new orchestra hall for everything else? That doesn't work. Wholly different kinds of acoustical requirements between different theaters that put on different sorts of productions. And so consequently, it seems quite clear that we need a new second type of performing hall. And so the idea that you can just have one for everything just doesn't work.
Well, but that's what else back comes to do. Well,
I mean, again, I think the key is that we don't have just one for everything. There's these other venues that are out there, but we certainly, I don't see a reason to fund a 600-person hall that's going to be used. I think they were only talking about less than 50 uses a year, if I remember correctly, for the second structure that they were planning on, which economically you're not going to, you're not going to make the money that costs to build it to that money back.
We're gonna have to. I'm gonna draft a letter with things, support, and maybe tweak it slightly based on some of these comments. And see if there's
surgery, that it'd be about a year to fully recover.
very, very
Colleges helping
slide, even given the controversy. There's ambiguity here, but that's kind of the way it is. So I'm going to go ahead with that. I don't know. Do we need a motion? I'm going to draft circulate it, so we're not asking for.
Why don't we wait till we have it?
Yeah, and we'll circulate that in the next few days. Okay, sorry everybody, this has gone on. Moving ahead, Jamie, on our events, what do you have on the annual meeting? We're moving ahead on that at the Garden Club.
Next Thursday, we're gonna have Chief Crochet and Mobile Command Center will be there too. So you guys really don't want to miss that.
Okay.
Model looks great. Definitely encourage you guys to.
It's a hidden gem. Bring the best of British TV. I don't know how to stream it. So that one show coming up, they're gonna want to see.
We don't get Brit.
Okay. Green space. Jerry Fogel is to be providing to the prep board on the 20th of the month an update on the Parks and Rec master plan. I guess nobody else is around to do it, so I'm going to draft a letter to Jerry with some DSCA input for circulation, including an update on the growth of downtown population-wise and potential green space, pocket park things, and this issue of benches and making existing parks more usable, for lack of a better
Question
word.
for you.
I'll draft something and I'll
Richard,
circulate. I know
you get the
Patrick has an
TV
interest in
network
this,
of
others of you, but I'll be attending the prep board meeting and seeing what he has. Hopefully it's not just a status report, but it is a little bit more of a refresh, because that was done 6 years or so ago.
Well, there's a show Jackie wants to see that's on BitBox, and we don't subscribe to it. And I thought if you did, I would borrow your password.
Question that came up at the homeless committee on the issue of
It's
how to
called
make our
Douglas
parks
is
safe
canceled.
for residents.
Douglas
On the
is
benches.
canceled.
It's coming out soon.
Bay Park has
Yeah.
cameras, wherever they have benches, there's cameras there. So I assume someone's monitoring. The chief is there with the big command center and so forth. Are they not able to monitor the parks?
Well, it's,
And so that,
sure.
that may be a question to put on him too. Maybe he can speak to that also before.
All right, in the interest of time, and Peter and I,
We
I
haven't
am
signed
not
up for
going to speak
Redbox
to
down here, and I don't
business
think
and health and
we want
safety.
at home.
We're doing a lot of work behind the scenes
Down here.
on the City Watch concept pilot for that.
We're gonna look
which
at,
we
we're probably
plan to
Well, we
have
might
further
get, we
discussions
might get
on,
one of
so
these, you know,
trust
get
me
30-day free trial kind of
that
deals, you know.
it's in line with what the
Yeah.
board discussed here a few months ago. And
I know
going ahead.
we have to do separately.
Transportation, trying to influence
I can understand.
the county. Roger, what do you have? Anything?
Okay, all right, well, go back to what you're doing. I just wanted to ask.
I was just sitting there contemplating my navel.
Oh, good, well, go back to your neighbors.
Interesting discussion
much to
doesn't need to
contemplate.
happen because somebody requested that the Transportation Committee bring forward the renaming of Tamiami Trail.
That's gonna drain you.
And I thought that would be a really fascinating discussion, but evidently that legislation has been dropped. And so it's no longer an issue. We are not going to change the name to the Gulf of America. Thank you.
Month of January, there were 8,000.
Don't go there.
In the zoning committee, I don't have
That was 189,000.
we're working on a couple projects, Saravella, 271 unit building down here, and thanks to Peter and Patrick for their support and on this. And I think we have something more specific to talk about here in the next few days, but that's coming to the planning board on the 12th of March.
Meeting last week with
Yes. Right. There was a discussion with the city staff on the area surrounding the Hyatt area and the evolving thing on that. And my eyes are glazing over. Patrick, I know you've talked to Bill about they have made some modifications to that we think are potentially helpful.
To my understanding, no modifications to the landscape around the site plan. The one modification potentially was to the area the east end of Boulevard of the Arts at 41, where Quay Block 1 is. That instead of reducing those 5 lanes to 2 or 3, they're going to keep those lanes. In other words, they're not changing that section.
At this time. That's a
Yeah,
recommendation.
but the long and short is that they had a grant that started 3-4 years ago to do a lot of things. Now that it's finally gotten approved, construction inflation causes them to have to drop some things. And the thing that's getting dropped by and large is the streetscape and the closing of lanes on Boulevard of the Arts west of US 41. So whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, that's just what's happened. One of the things though, they're doing, I think, nothing to improve the pedestrian safety on the intersection of US 41 and Boulevard of the Arts. They're saying, well, Florida Department of Transportation, you have at it. Yeah, the complete streets, they're not going to do it at this point unless they change their mind.
And then one other thing, just Congressman may will be following up, will be able to mention that with the city staff, the concern is with the overall reduction of canopy. That 1,000 section of Boulevard of the Arts is one of the more heavily treed areas right in front of the Hyatt. And all of those trees, all of the canopy trees in the median, all of the royal palms in front of that area will be taken out and replaced with, the current plan is 3-inch caliper. And a few others. So that is an ongoing concern about the size of what's
Right.
okay.
Okay.
So that will be followed up.
Yeah. 1260 Palm, Miramar, I mean, your eyes roll over trying to keep track of this stuff. 1260 Palm is coming back to the commission on April 21st. Miramar, I don't remember. But all of these matters are coming fast and furious.
I'm glad you're
Trying to
waiting.
follow
It'd be
and,
nice to have the seasoning set in.
report on them.
Well,
Bay Park
yeah.
Conservancy, Bob, I
This
hope.
has to, I have to solve this as
don't
well.
And a little bit, sure, it's just following up on things that are changing over there. They're actually starting some work. They're putting in the pilings for the seawall over there. They have gotten approval. I think you mentioned this, but they have gotten approval for the day dock, and it looks like that'll start construction during the summer sometime. And they're saying they're going to have it completed by September. So we'll see. Also, they are going to start in April working on the promenade that goes in front of the Memorial Auditorium. That's going to be a wide walkway that's there. They're going to take some of the parking space and some of the parking, but supposedly it's not going to affect the number of parking spaces.
He uses the word beautiful too much.
Sort of a V-shaped diagonal parking in there for all of those spaces. So that allows them a little bit more space by doing that. And they're still going to do the same.
Just go on talking forever, don't they?
That I think that Patrick had asked about with the connection, it's going to be disconnected. So when they build that,
I thought it was interesting. If you get Crystal.
Okay, CCNA meeting, the only notable thing I think that's come out of it is the review of the DRC process. It has been talked about for a year. Lucia sent around a notice to the first meeting of a ad hoc committee to look at that process and input it. I was selected, and I would just as soon hand off to somebody else, but I think it would be open to have a DSCA representative. It's a 9-member group. And again, I think the scope of which, I don't know at this point, but at least finally assembling a group to talk more specifically about what modifications might make sense for this, the whole DRC process. You could say, it's a month and a half off, and please, is somebody else interested in serving on that committee? Yes. Okay. Stay tuned. The Rosemary Housing Authority presented an update to the commission on Monday. It's still on the table, and a couple of the president of the Rosemary Association, Bill Liddell, talked about how critical parking is getting in the Rosemary. And so the McCowan site is still on the table and still being discussed as a potential parking structure, attainable housing, mixed use. So they're talking, and I don't know what else to say.
Will allow me to be self-sufficient.
No, Jim, no, we're just running solo. Okay. Okay, platinum members, do we, Jamie, do we have any, okay. Oh. Okay. All right. Comments, Jim, if are you the member rep for Jewel? Yep, okay, yeah. If,
You need an affidavit.
no, no.
Number one is, as far as we walked around, most of the fountains in the city are not functioning. And I think that should be on his agenda. The other issue is about the McCowan Tower. There was a woman from housing, I think, or there was a woman at CCNA last month who was very much against a parking garage in front of McCowan.
Yes.
And that's an input that might make a difference. Not everyone is in favor of the parking garage that we are. And the other, and there's one more point, are you going to discuss, is there anyone who discusses the sound ordinance? Because it does affect DSCA and its members. Thank you.
Some pack.
I have no specific update on the sound ordinance. Yeah, it's to come. We will not have a board meeting next month, given we're kind of meeting out. So we have the annual meeting next week, and then mid-April workshop, but we will not have a meeting, a board meeting. And apologies for running over. No excuses. Marlon went longer than yeah. So any final comments? Otherwise, time for a glass of wine. Thanks.